Okay, so let's unpack this. We have gotten our hands on a truly fascinating historical document. It's a real window into how the U.S. military was thinking about information warfare, well, right at the turn of the millennium.
It's a 330-page monster, released through a FOIA request to the Black Vault. We're talking about the Joint Psychological Operations Task Force Headquarters Master Training Guide.
And the date on this is key, isn't it? It's CJ's CSM 3500.08, dated May 1999.
Exactly. And critically, this entire doctrine was canceled in 2004. According to the DoD's own release, it was never fully replaced. So this isn't current, but it's this incredibly detailed snapshot.
So our mission today is really to dive deep into that framework. We want to see how the military bureaucracy went from these, high-level goals like winning hearts and minds
To creating these incredibly granular, almost clinical data points about a target audience, things like national character or religious militancy.
How do you even begin to quantify human nature for a military plan?
It's the ultimate exercise in turning culture into a tactical variable. But before we get into the really wild classifications, maybe we should start with the official definition they were working with.
Yeah, what exactly is a psychological operation, or PSYOP, according to this manual?
Okay, so they define it as planned operations to convey selected information and indicators to foreign audiences to influence their emotions, motives, objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of foreign governments, groups, and individuals favorable to U.S. objectives.
So it's organized, standardized influence deployed at scale.
Pretty much.
And as we dig into the incredible precision required for that and the absolute need to protect all that sensitive planning, it's a good reminder that information strategy, it matters everywhere.
It really does. Which is why we need to thank our sponsors. This whole deep dive is a great reminder about digital security, so a big thank you to www.myprivacy.blog and www.compliancehub.wiki.
Okay, so let's start with the structure they built. The Joint Psychological Operations Task Force, or JPOTF. Why was this separate headquarters even needed?
Well, the JPOTF is structured like a conventional joint force, J1 through J6, but it's not always active. It's basically a dedicated surge capacity.
A surge capacity for what, exactly?
For when the command and control requirements for a huge, complex PSYOP mission just get too big for a regular Joint Force Commander staff to handle, it treats information warfare as this unique, specialized skill set.
So when the information domain itself becomes a primary battlefield, you call in the specialists.
That's the idea.
The manual lays out these foundational principles for success. One that just jumped right out at me was that the mission has to be clearly defined, and all the themes and symbols you use, they have to be based on a really thorough analysis of the target.
No guessing. And they hammer this idea of operational discipline. They state that all actions have to be evaluated for their psychological implications.
All actions, so like a troop movement.
A troop movement, a humanitarian aid drop, a public statement. Everything gets measured for its non-kinetic effect. It's all part of the message.
That's a fascinating requirement. So even something that seems purely physical has to be viewed through a psychological lens?
Absolutely. And then there are other principles, like the medium you use has to be reliable and accessible to the audience you're trying to reach. And this last one is critical.
What's that?
Rapid exploitation of themes. If something happens, an event, a sudden vulnerability, you have to capitalize on it immediately.
And to manage all that, PSYOP wasn't just one thing. They actually detail 4 different types.
That's right. It shows how broad the application was. At the very top, you have strategic PSYOP.
Which is the long-term national level influence.
Exactly. Then you have operational PSYOP, which is conducted inside a specific theater of operations.
And then it gets even more local. The third is tactical PSYOP.
Right, in a specific area, supporting a tactical commander against, say, opposing forces right there in the fight.
And the last one.
That's consolidated PSYOP. These are very specific. They happen in foreign areas, maybe occupied by U.S. forces, with the goal of producing a very specific behavior.
Like non-resistance or cooperation.
Precisely. And this whole structure, from the global down to the hyper-local, it just underscores how deeply this was integrated with high-stakes military missions.
Yeah, the document is explicit about PSYOP support for all kinds of special operations, unconventional warfare, direct action, combating terrorism.
It even says that in unconventional warfare, the main PSYOP targets are the uncommitted populations and hostile sympathizers. One group is using a rifle, the JPOTF is using a loudspeaker and a printing press.
And it all reinforces that core value proposition, right? PSYOP actions are often low cost but potentially super high impact.
Exactly. Why risk troops and spend millions if you could achieve the same objective by changing the audience's mind?
Okay, so let's move to the section that I think elevates this from just a bureaucratic guide into something, well, almost like a sociological masterpiece.
You're talking about the target audience analysis.
Yes. This is where the intelligence and plans staff start analyzing the environment, using these intensely granular conditions. We're moving from military planning to, like, clinical cultural assessment.
This is where they codify human nature. They needed classifications that you could, drop into a spreadsheet or a computer simulation.
So what's the starting point?
They start really broad. Culture is either Western or non-Western. Language is primarily English. English is secondary for either.
Very high level. But then they start grading what they call national character. They use 3 categories: open and adaptable, careful and moderate, or closed and rigid.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
National discipline.
Yes, national discipline. It's a 4-point scale. It's designed to measure exactly how a population responds to its central government's control.
Which is a stunning example of turning this abstract concept into a quantifiable metric. So what's the scale?
It runs from high discipline, which they define as blind adherence,
Blind adherence, wow.
down to moderate, which is willing conformance. Then you have limited discipline, which means questioning acceptance.
And at the bottom.
Low discipline, rebellious nonconformance. For a planner, that scale tells you immediately how hard it's going to be to get that audience to do what you want.
So it's not just a description, it's a predictive tool.
That's exactly what it is. And they do the same thing with religion. They look at religious unity. Is it monolithic or fragmented? But the real depth comes in what they call religious militancy.
The militancy assessment must have been essential for creating themes, right? They're not just asking if a group is religious, but how aggressive those beliefs are.
And they quantify it. It goes from no militancy up to limited, which means the group isn't trying to impose its views on others. Then you get to moderate militancy.
And what does that mean?
This is a critical distinction. It means they're politically active inside their country, and they export their beliefs through missionary activity.
And a most severe level.
That's significant militancy. And that's reserved for groups that export their beliefs by force. That difference, missionaries versus military imposition, is a massive tactical variable.
The level of detail is just incredible. They even codify the political environment, right? Using descriptors for foreign public opinion.
Yep. Supportive, indifferent, moderately opposed, or aggressively opposed. And you can't influence an audience if they're, starving. So the economic and demographic factors are just as important.
So they're looking at things like the type of economy, knowledge-based, industrial, agrarian.
Right, which sounds a bit academic, but think about it. An agrarian economy relies on word of mouth and maybe basic print. A post-industrial one depends on digital media. That tells you exactly how to disseminate your message.
That makes perfect sense. So you don't waste time with a radio broadcast if no one has a radio.
Precisely. And they even analyze infrastructure dependence. How fragile is their economy? Is there excess capacity, or would a small disruption cause a collapse?
And they tie it all back to the population's well-being. They measure civil health based purely on life expectancy.
Yeah, robust is over 70 years, all the way down to poor, which is under 55 years. A population's health and stability directly influence how susceptible they are to themes of, say, revolution or hope.
And the single purpose of all this data, the culture, the GDP, the life expectancy, is just to make sure that every single PSYOP product, every leaflet, every broadcast is perfectly tailored.
It's all about maximizing impact by hitting known vulnerabilities, themes, and symbols.
And you realize, looking at this, just how mission critical this information is. You're analyzing the very fabric of a foreign society.
Which requires absolute policy clarity and rigorous control. The standards in this document are unbelievably strict. You see things requiring 100% compliance over and over.
It's true. The need for that precision, that adherence to protocol, it can't be overstated. It actually makes us grateful for services that help us maintain policy and privacy in our own work.
Absolutely. So thank you again to www.myprivacy.blog and www.compliancehub.wiki.
Let's shift gears now to how they actually trained people for this. You can have the most detailed plan in the world, but if the staff can't execute, it's useless.
Right. So the training starts with the big resource-intensive stuff. Joint readiness exercises and field training exercises, the FTXs.
And these are complicated, right? You're moving huge numbers of people around.
It's a monumental logistical challenge, which is why the headquarters staff, the actual planners, often trained using more cost-effective simulations.
The command post exercises, or CPX, and the computer-assisted exercises, the CAX.
Exactly. A CPX is more about training commanders and staff in decision-making using simulated information flow. The CAX takes it a step further.
How so?
It uses computers to simulate the entire environment, the progression of events, even the enemy's response to your psychological cues.
And the document lists some serious high-end simulation models they were using.
Oh, yeah. They mention ALSP, which allowed different service models to talk to each other. But the really fascinating one for our discussion is the Joint Theater Level Simulation, or JTLS.
What was so special about that one?
It was designed to analyze theater-level operational plans. It could actually simulate the effects of special operations and had full intelligence and logistics modeling.
Wait, so if a team wanted to test a PSYOP product, like a leaflet drop, they could feed that plan into JTLS and model the expected effects on enemy morale and behavior.
Precisely. It allows them to try and quantify the behavioral change from their non-kinetic actions. All that granular data we talked about gets fed into the machine to predict the outcome.
And once the exercise is done, they have to assess it. That's the after-action review process, the AAR.
Right. And the main event here is the Facilitated After-Action Review, or FAR. It's designed to be quick and sharp, about 2 hours. The goal isn't to pass or fail.
It's to let the trainees figure out what happened and, more importantly, why it happened.
Exactly. It's about problem solving. And all of that gets compiled into a final report that rates their proficiency on a scale. Trained, needs practice, or untrained.
So what really stands out after going through this whole manual is just the incredible operational rigor they applied to influence.
It's immense. You go from a high-level national security goal all the way down to classifying a country based on the life expectancy of its people.
And that rigor is backed by mandatory standards. That 100% compliance requirement is no joke. And there's strict legal oversight, too.
Oh, yeah. They explicitly rate the legality of any proposed action. Is it full, meaning compliant, disputed, meaning ambiguous, or condemned, meaning it clearly violates the law? They are trying to operate within very strict boundaries.
So here's the provocative thought we want to leave you with. The sheer complexity of trying to assess human nature using these objective descriptors, the scales of discipline, the life expectancy thresholds, it suggests that for them, culture isn't some soft, nebulous concept.
No, it's a hard, measurable, tactical variable.
And when you feed those classifications into an advanced simulation like JTLS, you are trying to predict and maybe even control human behavior based on data points.
So the question is, what does it mean for influence operations when human behavior is codified into data points and simulations that are designed to predict and control outcomes?
It really makes you question whether the map they created, this 330-page guide, could ever accurately reflect the territory, especially when that territory is the complex, shifting landscape of the human mind.
It's a deep question. And as you think on that, and as you secure your own information, remember the importance of clear policy and security. Be sure to check out our sponsors, www.myprivacy.blog and www.compliancehub.wiki.